In today's video, I'm going to be talking to you about microdosing because everybody's doing it. Hi, my name's Fola, and if you're new to my channel, I'm so glad you could join in. And to those of you coming back, thanks for your support. Today I'm going to be talking to you about microdosing. If you haven't heard about microdosing, then this will be a great introduction. There's so much material out there, but the talk of microdosing and psychedelics is becoming the new big thing. And there's a lot of potential in medicine and the future of healthcare around these different ways of treating a variety of mental health concerns and even physical ailments. I'm not going to go into all the research and benefits of, psilocybin or the magic mushrooms, LSD, MDMA. I'll leave that for maybe some other videos. But specifically today, I wanted to talk to you about microdosing. Microdosing involves taking a micro or smaller dose amount of any of these plant medicines or medicine substances. And the hope is to then obtain the same benefits, but not having as big of an altered state of consciousness as you would if you took like a tab of LSD. So for example, with psilocybin, someone who would maybe be wanting to reach a more altered state would take anywhere from 2.3 grams and up. You talk about the heroic dose in like those 4-gram areas, depending, I guess, on the person. That would be like the normal bigger dose. But when we're referring to microdosing, we're talking about someone taking anywhere from 1/10 to 1/20th of the amount. And that could look from, just less than 0.1 grams to sometimes higher, depending on the person's body weight and their sensitivity. There's so many different medicines out there that people have been practicing or experimenting with. Some of them include cannabis, we have DMT, LSD, psilocybin, and ketamine. So why exactly would someone want to microdose, you might be asking? There are so many different reasons why someone might start microdosing. Some of the main ones have been that it helps boost creativity and as well as productivity, which they say many people working in different forms of technology professions, areas where they need to be kind of on the ball with creating new projects and ideas. It helps them to kind of think outside of the box. The whole idea of, psychedelics, these types of medicines, is that they provide someone with a new perspective on their life or on ideas and things around them. And so by taking a smaller amount of one of these medicines, people can see an ongoing impact on their ability to think and thus become more creative. And it can also help with reducing procrastination in certain cases, depending on the person. Another reason that's leading to a lot of people using microdosing in their day-to-day life is that it helps boost mood. A lot of people who are experiencing issues such as anxiety, depression, even post-traumatic stress disorder, they're finding a lot of success with microdosing compared to taking the conventional medications like an antidepressant or an anti-anxiety medication like Ativan, which can be really addictive. So you can see versus some of these plant medicines, which most of them do not have any addictive properties chemically, cannabis, even with psilocybin, they have not been able to locate anything like that, and they have less side effects overall. So these are some of the pros and cons that people need to consider when looking at these different options. And overall, another reason to try microdosing in some cases could be to help deepen a sense of connection and to really start opening up the connection with relationships in life. I'm sure we've all heard stories of people who've taken the bigger doses of some of these medicines, and they've had really profound spiritual experiences where they felt an overall sense of connection to others, to themselves, They felt love for self and for others, and it seemed like they just had this appreciation of all that life had to offer. And so what people find is with microdosing, this can really start to open those doors of connection and acceptance of others and of the self in deeper ways. And it's a little more gentler on the person during the microdosing experience versus a macro dose or a normal dose. So what microdosing looks like, for instance, would depend on what it is the person's looking to achieve. If they're aiming for more something around like mood and to manage anxiety, maybe some work around with creativity, they might be looking at psilocybin, right? I know for myself, with my experiences, I really enjoyed using cannabis in a microdose, like CBD oil, to kind of help with anxiety, and also because I don't like the overwhelming feeling of this kind of grounded heaviness that it can bring in the larger doses. So you need to know what type of medicine you're going to choose, and obviously how are you going to obtain it. Because side note here, as if you are not already aware, a lot of places consider these different medicines or substances as illegal. So this is by no means me telling you to go and purchase drugs or substances or medicines, or whatever you want to call it, from people in an illegal manner, because that's on you. But luckily here in Canada, cannabis is legal now. You have to be of a certain age and all these different restrictions, but at least people can obtain it so much more easily than before we became legal. The next step is to find out your dosing. And so you can look up, there's lots of different dosage calculators online for different types of medicines. Again, sometimes with, say, psilocybin, they say anywhere from 0.1 to 0.3 or so grams, really depending on the person's sensitivity. I think too, it's up to each individual to consider what's going to work best for them. And like they say with the cannabis world, start low, go slow, and then work your way up from there. It's better to be safe than sorry when it comes to taking a dose where you think it's a microdose and it ends up not being a microdose. And then it's time for you to figure out what is your frequency or your schedule going to look like. It really depends. I've read of a lot of different people trying different types of schedules. Some people have reported taking it every day, psilocybin, for instance, at a microdose level. Other people, the more common would be every 3 days or every third day taking your dose, preferably earlier in the day, because some of these things can impact your sleep and your energy levels. So last thing you want is to take something in like 10 o'clock at night and then you can't sleep, right? But again, this is dependent on each person to figure it out. I think the best way so that we don't become reliant on a lot of these different medicines is to take them in like spurts of time, maybe a month to 2 months at a time, so that you can see how it impacts you. And then after that, giving yourself a little bit of a break so that your mind and your biology can kind of keep up. And the benefit of that is to integrate the experiences that have been arising for you internally. I think it really comes down to being an experimenter around all this stuff for your own body. But again, being mindful that you know you best. You're going to know, but trying not to, put yourself on something just because it's the cool thing to do. Again, this topic, it's like a really new fad, I'd say. Well, not new. This topic is a fad, and there's so many people talking about it and wanting to try it, and it seems like there's way more people out there, from what I've heard, who are doing these things, and it's about educating yourself and knowing what's best for you. So a few things just to be mindful of if you are considering to microdose. Again, what's the legality of the medicine or the substance that you're trying to use? I don't want to see people getting in trouble here, and we need to really be mindful of what we're consuming and also where it's coming from. There's that whole side of consuming a substance that I think people aren't really fully aware of. Another big part of this is you need to know why you are taking it. Don't just take it because you think it's cool and because your neighbor and your neighbor's friend and your brother and your brother's friend are all doing it. Know what is meant for you, and setting an intention before you consume any plant medicine is going to give you the best result in the end. And this is something I love as like a daily sort of intention setting. If I'm like going to do any type of work, ceremonial work, or using any type of medicine, it would be to set the intention and connect with that plant, connect with the reasons why you are seeking the support and the guidance, because there's a deeper energetic level of what's going on with these plants than science talks about sometimes. Being mindful of the dosage is really important. Again, start low, go slow, and work your way up. You've heard of people who have taken what they thought was a microdose of LSD, and it wasn't. And if you're planning on going to work after you've accidentally taken too much of something, I would really say that's probably not a good idea. And you don't want to have your whole day gone. So people usually will plan the dosing schedule around a time that they are not going to be involved in any type of work or having to drive their kids to school. Just, be careful, be smart about it. Don't put other people at risk. Do not put yourself at risk. Another really important thing I want to talk about here is being mindful before you take any of these medicines, if you do so choose, to consider what medications or other things you might be on. As we know, a lot of antidepressants impact the serotonin in our brain, in our body, and serotonin, one of the main neurotransmitters related to mood. If sometimes people take too much, even of their antidepressants, or they mix different medications together, or they decide to throw in other types of medicines in, even psilocybin, for instance, that can create a whole whack load of problems and different side effects, even potentially like deadly side effects. So just really be mindful what you're taking and what you're mixing it with. And I think this can be the hard part because a lot of people aren't talking to their healthcare providers, whether it's a physician or whoever that's prescribing medication, and they're trying to keep these two worlds separate. I would say if you can, try to find someone who is at least open-minded about these things and just have honest conversations with them, but just allow them to educate you about the potential dangers that could arise if you are on any other medication or going through any other types of treatment. And a last point I want to just throw out there is the importance of integration work. Integration therapies are kind of like the milk to the sugar that you add into your coffee, I would say. So unless you don't drink milk and sugar, I don't know. But I think it's really important that anyone who's considering doing some form of psychedelic therapy or microdosing, trying to enter these altered states while shifting their life and still living like their day-to-day life, it's really important that you learn how to integrate what is coming up. Because anything I've learned from any form of altered state practice, spiritual practices, is that it can bring up some really deep things. And especially if you have a lot of trauma, a history of experiences that maybe you've been for so long keeping kind of just down below the surface, then plant medicines, anything like that, it's going to just tilt you a little much, where you have to look into those darker parts, and that can be scary for a lot of people. And so integration therapy, which is something that I'm quite passionate about, is about helping support someone who's gone through an experience with medicines like the ones we've talked about in this video, or they've maybe had a really profound experience with an altered state that they just cannot seem to navigate and understand. And so having someone who's a professional talk to you about what you've gone through and provide kind of a framework around what's happened, that can be really, really healing. And in the end, it's gonna help kind of shorten the time of integration. So definitely, if you are interested in something like that, reach out. There's people around the world that are providing that services, such as myself. There you have it. That's just a little bit of information on microdosing, but I'd love to hear your thoughts if you think this is actually of a benefit for people, or if it's dangerous ground that we're starting to open up. And if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, feel free to hit the subscription button, the subscribe button, and the little notification bell, and share this video with someone you think might benefit from it. So until then, bye.